Earlier, we talked about what would happen if the Republicans take the Senate. If you think Herschel Walker and J.D. Vance are scary prospects to possibly be entering Congress, remember, it's still the Senate. It's still likely going to have the air, at least, of being the more moderate or tamer part of Congress, one that moves, sorry to say, kind of like a dinosaur, if that is, it manages to get anything done at all. But the House, that's another and much scarier story. If the Republicans take the lower chamber, we are in for a very crazy, very dizzying ride, where the GOP majority will be defined by the party's far-right MAGA extremists, the group that is on course to grow most in size. As even the sober New York Times put it, a GOP House majority in 2023 is shaping up to be combative to an alarming degree. So what would that look like? Well, here are the kind of things we can expect a Republican House with a Republican majority and with control of committee chairs and purse strings to do. You can say goodbye to the January 6th committee for a start. Investigating the greatest attack on our nation's capital in modern history will just be swept under the rug. Instead, Republicans in the House will turn their focus to investigating Hunter Biden and his now notorious laptop. There's so much to find on there, apparently. They'll also let their conspiracy theories about big tech and Anthony Fauci and the Communist Party of China run wild in a sweeping investigation into the secret man-made origins of the coronavirus. They'll also want to go after the president himself. There are far-right Republican House members who have said on the record that they would vote to impeach Joe Biden once they have control of the House. Impeach him for what, you may ask? Well, many reasons. Congressman Bob Good of Virginia told The Hill in August, quote, "I have consistently said President Biden should be impeached for intentionally opening our border and making Americans less safe." I'm stopping there, but I could go on. There's so much more madness. Republicans are also likely going to hold the debt ceiling hostage to force spending cuts, including slashing Medicare and Social Security. Popular stuff. Kevin McCarthy went on CNN to make that clear.
So if you're going to give a person a higher limit, wouldn't you first say you should change your behavior so you just don't keep raising it all the time? I think we need to look at where the waste, the fraud, and abuse.
I mean, on the eve of these midterms, they're not hiding it. By the way, who's going to be in charge of reeling in the House the host of far-right candidates who may be joining the GOP ranks? Yeah, that guy you just saw. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who has long been desperate to be House Speaker. You know, the guy who stood up to Donald Trump. Oh, wait, that never happened. Who stood up to Marjorie Taylor Greene then? Nope, that didn't happen either. If the GOP takes the House tomorrow, even if the Democrats hold on to the Senate, there's no telling how Kevin McCarthy or anyone else will handle the far-right Republicans who will be walking into that lower chamber, feeling like they own the place, and what that will mean for the next 2 years. Good luck to us all. Good luck to American democracy. But as they say, it's not over until it's over. There's still no saying what could happen come Tuesday. Joining me now to discuss all of this and more, our MSNBC political analyst David Jolly. He's a former Republican congressman out of Florida. He's no longer with that party. And we also have MSNBC political analyst and former Democratic congresswoman from Maryland, Donna Edwards. She's now a columnist with the Washington Post. Thank you both for joining me. David, let me begin with you. If the Republicans retake control of the House, is Kevin McCarthy going to be Speaker? Or do you think there could actually be a successful challenge mounted against him from the right? There is a school of thought that says McCarthy will never actually become Speaker.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mehdi. And a year ago, it would have appeared that Kevin McCarthy's fate was in peril. But it does seem that he has chosen to just fully embrace the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the MAGA cult and call them conservatives, whatever their names are. So because of that, I think Kevin McCarthy does become Speaker. The interesting thing, though, the way he becomes Speaker means he will be controlled by Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and the Crazy Caucus. And I do believe you'll see two things from a Kevin McCarthy House. Should Republicans retake the House, they will impeach Joe Biden. I don't think that's a question anymore. They will impeach Joe Biden. And you will see the culture war narratives, don't say gay bills and other type of legislation, but they will tie it to the budget, to your point of bringing us to the point of fiscal collapse. They will use government shutdowns as a way to try to extract culture war leverage. Those are the tools that Republicans know, and they use very well.
I agree with you. They will definitely impeach Joe Biden. The only question is how many times. Donna, should the Democrats lose, if there is a red wave, might that be a signal it's time for a change at the top? It's time for some change amongst House leadership? I mean, put aside performance issues. What about new blood in your party? The average age of Nancy Pelosi, Jim Clyburn, and Steny Hoyer is around 82.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there is already a clamoring that began in the last Congress for new leadership. I would not be surprised at all if that really takes hold, whether Democrats retain the majority or go into the minority. I think the bigger question is who's the leader who's going to be able to keep Democrats united in the face of a Republican Party that in some instances is going to be sort of fractured. I do think that there will be Republicans who do not want to use the debt limit as a way to hold the government hostage. Republicans went through that before, and it didn't work out well for them, and there are still Republicans in the House who remember that. I also think that, one of the benefits of having had long-term leadership in the House under Speaker Pelosi is that she does know that caucus, and she has been able to unify them in a way that I think will be complicated for new leadership to do. But the key to success for Democrats in the minority is the same as it's been in the majority, and that is to stick together in the face of Republicans fracturing. And I don't believe that Kevin McCarthy is either going to be a long-term leader or that he's going to be a strong leader in the face of a conference that is all over the map.
Yes, Kevin McCarthy, well known for his strength and strong leadership. David, if Kevin McCarthy does become the next Speaker of the House, do you agree with something I said on this show last night, which is that he will never allow the certification of a Joe Biden re-election win on January the 6th, 2025? He was part of that group of 130-something House Republicans who voted to overturn in 2021 when they were the minority. Why would we believe that once he has the Speaker's gavel, he's going to allow Trump to lose in 25?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mehdi, and this is part of the transformation of Kevin McCarthy. Donna used the word weak, and I think that's true. We might see one of the weakest speakers of the House we've ever seen. One of the reasons I think a Republican caucus under McCarthy does impeach Joe Biden is because Donald Trump will want Kevin McCarthy to do that. And in some narrative that it dilutes the former impeachment of Donald Trump, the two impeachments of Donald Trump. And so to your point, Mehdi, I think what Kevin McCarthy has shown us is he folds under pressure. And the pressure will be to not certify an election in 2025 if Donald Trump or the Republican nominee does not win. This is where, look, I think we survive a lot of the existential questions around the 2022 midterms. But I think we're facing a real one in 2024, and it's the point of this exact conversation.
Don, I want to ask a question about the Democratic Party and how it handles its primaries, how it handles funding. You lost your Democratic primary to a challenger, Glenn Ivey, who received, I believe, more than $6 million from a super PAC associated with the pro-Israel group AIPAC in another district in western Pennsylvania. Summer Lee won the Democratic nomination despite that AIPAC-linked super PAC, accusing her of not being a real Democrat. And yet now they're funding her GOP opponent in these midterms. At what point do Democrats, does your party really stand up to a lot of these dark money groups, these super PACs, especially groups like AIPAC, which are also happily backing GOP election deniers and insurrections? You talk about your party being united. There's a lot of stuff it's not united on.
Well, I think that's true. And one correction, it actually was $7 million that was spent against me in a Democratic primary. But I think that what Democrats have to ask ourselves is whether we're going to allow principally Republican money, because the money that was poured into my race that's being poured against Summer Lee is a lot of Republican money from some of the worst actors. And we have to ask ourselves whether that's what we want controlling our party and selecting our nominees and our candidates. And I think it is a really important question for the future. And if you look at races across the country where this is happening, I think that these Republican donors are going to learn that lesson, and there will be even more money flooding into Democratic primaries and into the general election.
It's a fair point. Last quick question to you, David. 30 seconds left. You were involved in the launch of this third party, the Forward Party. Been meaning to ask you for a while. We're talking about what's going to happen on January 6, 2025. Please tell me that Andrew Yang is not going to be launching some kind of ridiculous third party presidential bid.
I'll let Andrew speak for himself. I think he said he's not running. Mehdi, very important. I led a group into the Forward Party. I'm not currently a member. What I would tell you is they are seeing accelerated growth. They now have 50 state presence. Probably 300,000 people have signed up. I have made very clear in this election and in the 24 presidential election with democracy on the line, the only viable vessel for protecting democracy is the Democratic Party. I do think 40% of the country, though, has said we can't see ourselves in today's Republican or Democratic Party. So where do they go? And that's the question Forward's trying to answer.